Hi! This time I wanted to talk about the mechanics and the themes behind using mind control and sanity related effects to control, or rather change the way that the player characters or non-player characters act during a scenario or an adventure. I don't remember if... I think this came about because I had a conversation with either Runwise Gamgee or Rick from the 28mm RPG channel. One of them, or perhaps both of them, mentioned what I thought about, yes, controlling player characters under the effects of some sort of insanity or mind control and such. So this video is about that. I think that when it comes to controlling player characters as a game master or non-player characters as a player character, there must be some limits. There must be a logical reason for that to happen. If you are a game master and you are controlling the actions of the player characters without some sort of magical, psionic, or science-based effect that justifies such a thing, then that shouldn't be done. That's a sign of the frustrated author sort of play, where you see the player characters as accessories for the story that you want to tell. And it's not about that. But it could also be the other way around. You could have a player character that, because that character was successful in a particular check, now that player character feels that he or she is entitled to control the non-player characters in some way. For example, maybe you are infiltrating a base and you were successful in your stealth check, and suddenly the player character starts to narrate or describe how his character is suddenly getting into these forbidden rooms or well-guarded sections of the base, and he starts to kill non-player characters automatically, or that character is successful in finding something. So that's a sign of a frustrated game master, in my opinion. In fact, not even that. The sign of a frustrated game master that is also a frustrated author, because that player was only carrying out a single action, infiltrating this place stealthily. You got in, that's it. Okay, you are not supposed to narrate the successes that come after that action. Maybe, like I said, some combat actions, some search or perception checks. You do not have an automatic success when it comes to those checks, because you were only carrying out a single action. You cannot be successful at several things unless that's mechanically tied to the rules of the system. So for example, maybe it says something like, if you obtain a remarkable success or a critical success or whatever, when you infiltrate a place, you get an automatic hit against a non-player character inside. That makes sense. So as long as there is a justification when it comes to the rules, to the effects, you cannot control other non-player characters or player characters. In that case, the player character is trying to control the actions, or rather the inability or lack of efficiency when it comes to the non-player characters that get automatically hit. Like I said, unless it is an effect related to the use of a skill, a power, feat, edge, etc., it shouldn't be done. Just like the game master is not going to control the player characters are not going to control the non-player characters unless there is an effect related to the rules, or perhaps, like I said, a mind control or sanity related effect. Taking that into consideration, anything goes when it comes to mind control. That's my take on things. Because if you are a player character and you are using some sort of charm, suggestion, anything, or on the psionics part like mind control, hypnosis, suggests, yes, some sort of thing that basically strong arms, or yes, bends the arm or twists the arm of the opponent, so to speak, into doing something, because the mind is like a muscle. So if you are using some sort of superior method, you are basically, like I said, you are forcing the opponent to do something that he or she doesn't want to do. The same case with the game master. if you're going to control the player characters in some way, there must be some effect behind it. Again, another way to force the characters into that situation. This is also related to sanity, because insanity pretty much takes control out of your hands. Those that fall prey to those imbalances, oftentimes they feel as if they are disconnected from the actions that they are doing. Although if you dig deep enough, you will see that the actions are very much related to their nature, to their very nature. For example, take into consideration demonic possession. All of those that are possessed by demons in the more spectacular ways are always religious people. So you could say that it's mostly like a mental problem interpreted under the lenses of the interpretation of a particular religion. But in the ancient times, let's say in the Middle East, I don't remember the name of the word, but in the Middle East, I don't know if they still use that word. But the word that they use for crazy person and possessed person is basically the same, because you are possessed by madness. So there is very little difference. And remember, this is all science fiction. What's the difference if you are doing something that is not productive, healthy? You are possessed by something. You can call it insanity, you can call it a demon, whatever. It's the same sickness. You can also say that there are other means to control people. For example, and remember, this is science fiction. Okay, the hypothalamus. We all share the hypothalamus with other animals, humans and animals. It's not the same structure, of course, but we all vibrate at the same level. It's 7.83 hertz. Yes, 7.83 hertz. So, if there are some ways to raise that vibration out of balance or lower it enough, let's say through the use of some devices, let's call them cellophonies. If you get what I mean, cellophonies. Let's say that you are able to send a signal through a cellophone. You know that I have to say it like this to avoid the algorithm. If you raise the vibration above 7.83, the person is going to become quite hyperactive, anxious, anxiety, high-strung, neurotic. Raise it enough and the person will become violent. And what if you start to lower that vibration? The person is going to start to feel very drowsy, very sleepy, and perhaps if you lower it even more, the person will start to feel quite depressed, perhaps even wait for the YouTube algorithm, suicidal. The person may want to do something to himself or herself because the vibration is too low. It's interesting, you may remember that in Japan there have been many suicides, and they have been carrying out experiments. Of course, these are not details that are shared in the mainstream, but you will notice that in Japan, in the subway stations, they have many pale and blue lights. I would recommend that you search the influence that pale and blue lights, in the contrary of, how do you call them? Incandescent light bulbs. It's a completely different effect. It's a, what would you say, calming, lulling, almost anesthetizing effect. Like it dulls your senses. It almost makes you a bit sleepy without energy to think about rebelling against your situation. So there are ways to manipulate people in that science fiction situation. When it comes to role-playing games, if you want the mind control to occur in a bit more on the side of science, you can implement some sort of signal that is able to raise or lower the 7.83 frequency. And this can be heightened even more if you trick the person into taking certain substances so that they are already too high or too below the balance of 7.83. For example, you want the person to be more, easier to control when it comes to raising the vibration. How about that person falls into this propaganda of coffee. Let's drink coffee. Coffee, pesticide. Search for coffee, pesticide. The coffee wakes you up, gets you really hyped up. So now your vibration is getting higher and higher. So just a little push is enough to get you to commit some very idiotic things. Or what if you trick the person into, you use reverse psychology and you tell the person, if you want to stick it to the man, smoke some weed. And now the person starts to become relaxed and sleepy because of the weed, so you start to lower the vibration. And now that person is more susceptible to lowering the vibration to the point that later on the person feels a bit more depressed, enters this downward spiral, and now the person needs more to smoke a bit more. So the person is never in balance when it comes to just controlling his or her own thoughts. So in my opinion, when it comes to tabletop role-playing games, whether you choose the psionic or magic or science route to control the player characters or non-player characters, I would say that it is justified that the game master can control the actions of the player characters that are under the effect of mind control or perhaps insanity, because they are no longer acting in a balanced way. They have no control over their actions. So when the dungeon master, game master, etc. takes control of the player character, the player is actually going to feel that he or she has no control. The other way around also works. If the player character is mind controlling or perhaps using some spell that makes the non-player character go insane, when it comes to insanity, because the player characters have no control upon the effects, the physical, chemical effects of the game world, then I would say that it's the job of the game master to represent the insanity of the non-player character, unless the spell allows you to control the insane non-player character. And in the case of a mind control effect, unless it is a suggestion, like just a suggestion type of spell, like of the same name, suggestion or charm or something, then the game master should also control the actions of the non-player character. But if it's a direct mind control effect, then the player character should have full control over the non-player character, in my opinion. I know it's frustrating for game masters and player characters to see their characters controlled by the opposing force. Although role-playing games are a cooperative experience, you still have to represent that opposition. Otherwise, the story would be pretty bland, no surprises whatsoever, no excitement when it comes to combat, intrigue, etc. But like I said, it could be frustrating, but you have to understand it as part of losing control over your character. It's also related to the fact that usually player characters want to survive. That is, the players controlling their characters, they want their characters to survive. So if you tell them like, oh, roleplay your insanity, or roleplay that you are being mind controlled, more often than not, the player is going to portray that condition, that effect, in a way that is not too negative for the player character, because he or she wants his or her player character to survive or to look somewhat cool every now and then. And under the effects of mind control, perhaps you may commit or do something that you will regret within the fiction later on. So yes, those are my thoughts on mind control and insanity. If you have any other takes on the situation, please let me know in the comment section. Do you, as a game master, do you take control of the player characters when you use mind control, or if they are insane? Or do you tell them to play it out, play the situation out according to their own interpretation? Do you trust them enough? And sometimes, even though they try their best, they may end up tricking themselves into not adequately representing the mind control or insanity situation because they want what's best for their characters. And when it comes to players, for those of you that have participated as player characters, does your game master allow you to control the non-player characters directly through a mind control spell, effect, science-related method, etc.? I would love to hear your thoughts about that. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any other questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.